Hello everyone, my name is Colin and you are watching ClassyHerps. So today I'm going to try to do a little bit of a video covering the really cool ball pythons that I've kind of produced over the time, because you guys really had a good response to the ball python video that I made not too long ago. So I just kind of want to show you some of the coolest ball pythons that I have back here. Because who doesn't love ball pythons, right? I know it's kind of a boring, kind of a generic thing, but I've got some cool stuff to show you guys for sure. So starting off here, this is a female pastel pinstripe desert ghost. So the desert ghost is kind of an unworked with gene in a lot of people's collection, just because there's been a bit of controversy in it and around the past, but for the most part that's pretty much been worked out. The kinks have been worked out of the project and people are breeding it successfully now without any real genetic issues. And so it's a really cool gene, and you can just see how pale it makes everything, and it's just a very vibrant snake. So that combination is really cool. So some of the other desert ghost stuff that we've been working on here as well. This is if you were to add in yellow belly in that, but take out the pinstripe. So this is a pastel yellow belly desert ghost. You can kind of see that it's in shed right now too, but just the contrast between the black and the yellow is really kind of an amazing contrast that I like in that anyway. Some other cool stuff that I really wanted to show you guys. These are two babies, not really babies anymore, but two that we hatched out here, and these are siblings, and I've shown you them before, I believe, but I just love to highlight these guys because these are my pair of butter scaleless heads that hopefully will be producing some leucistic scaleless snakes in the future with. So that's a pretty exciting project for me personally, but not too crazy in the color-wise right yet now. Here's another really cool one that, actually before I show that to you, I want to show the base form of it. So GHI is kind of a unique morph in the way that it has an iridescent look to it. And I don't know if you'll be able to see that through the camera, but in person and in the light it kind of has a rainbow kind of iridescent reflection on the scales. But other than that, it's just a very dark morph. So what it does is it increases the melanin production so that it makes it have extra dark pigmentation. So that's kind of what's happening with the GHI. For those who are curious, the GHI stands for gotta have it. Really kind of a creative name on that one. But this is a pretty cool gene because it's one of the few genes that creates more dark pigmentation, while most of the morphs are going to create more of the bright colors. So it's kind of special in that aspect. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with that morph. One of my favorite combinations that I've ever seen, and I'm going to get back to that one that I promised I'd show you guys. He's breeding right now. So a really cool combination with GHI that I think is really cool, and see he's trying to court with her right now, so I'm really messing this up, but he'll try. He's got all season. It's just the very beginning. This is one of my favorite combos with GHI I've ever seen because it kind of has opposite effects on each other. This is a ghost or a hypomelanistic GHI, so the hypo does the exact opposite of what GHI does. It decreases the dark pigmentation, so it makes it kind of a pale snake, and GHI is increasing that, so this snake is like a living contradiction as far as its pigmentation goes. So it kind of gives this kind of weird color, and he's in here breeding with this Mojave ghost spider, so make some pretty cool babies out of that. I'm looking forward to. So when you cross GHI to other kind of dark morphs like a Mojave, you get these kind of almost solid black with this stripe down its back, broken up type of ball python, which is very cool because there are not a whole lot of black morphs out there, and that is definitely black. So, and it still kind of maintains that iridescence from the GHI, which is one of my favorite things about it. So that's a pretty cool snake. And GHI is incomplete dominant, so you can have a super form of it, but kind of a unique recessive gene that not a whole lot of people are working with. This right here is a toffee, and a lot of people are working with albinos, a lot of people work with caramel albinos, but this is a different form of albinism. Not a whole lot of people work with, and I think it's a very, very cool gene because it changes color so much over its lifetime. When they're born, you almost can't tell the difference between a toffee and an albino, but each time it sheds, you can notice the difference, and they get this darker color in between the yellow, and by the time they're adults, they really kind of look more like a caramel albino than an albino. So Very cool. It's allelic with albino, so you can cross it and make all kinds of Tofino very easily. So it's kind of a fun project. But this was one that I shown you guys before. This has been on Brian's on Snakebites channels, the Chimera one, just to give you a little bit of an update on this little girl. She's growing, just as unique as ever. But pretty cool ball python right there. Here's one that we produced last year, and this one, I really only kept him just because he's so weird. I'm sure you guys have heard of paradoxing before, when there's a spot on the snake that just isn't quite right, and most of the time you're going to see like one spot like this right here where you see this paradox marking. And what paradoxing is a completely random thing. It's not genetic, but what happens is, well, the baby is in the egg forming, some little patch of the scales just didn't quite get coded correctly, and it reverts back to either one of the genes that's in there lacking one of them, or all the way back to normal. And so what happened in this case was he got a ton, like the most I've ever seen on a ball python, of these paradox markings just all over his entire body from his head. His head is actually kind of split in half there. It's pretty unique, all the way down to his tail. So he's got these spots all over him, and the brown areas are actually either pinstripe or spider. It's kind of hard to tell because you can't really see any pattern in it, but what happened is the pastel, this is a pastel pinstripe spider, so the pastel got left out in these patches right here. So that gene got turned off while it's turned on in these areas. So kind of a unique animal, but his babies don't have any better chance of being a paradox snake than any others are. It's just kind of a fluke sort of thing. So that makes him kind of a special snake. Genetically, he's not real too awesome crazy, but just as an individual, that is pretty cool. Guys over there breeding too. Most of the males that I was hoping to show you here, I've got up here breeding right now. So this is another cool one that I wanted to show you guys here. This right here is called a Mardi Gras, and they look really, really red when they're babies, and they kind of get a little bit more dull, but as far as red goes and orange on a ball python, that's about as much as you're ever going to see, other than something like a sunset when it's young. But red is a very hard color to kind of come across in the ball python world, but this is what happens when you cross asphalt to yellow belly and add in enchi also. So very cool snake. It's a male that we're running through all of our yellow belly females, trying to make more of these and different combos of that complex. Very cool snake right there. Here's another one that we produced that is on Snakebites that I've shown you guys before. This right here is the Xanthic Super Pastel Pinstripe Spider. So she's kind of a special snake to me just because of how like genetically unique that makes her, being double homozygous, one of those genes being recessive, and adding on two others on top of that is kind of crazy. But very cool, very cool. Okay, so this is a unique snake, not necessarily because of the genetics that are in her. Well, I guess it does have to do with the genetics in her, but not the genetics of her color and her pattern. She is very pretty. She's a champagne pastel, so yeah, it's a pretty cool combination, but that's not the unique thing about this snake. It might be kind of hard to tell on camera without comparison, but she's about twice the size of an average ball python. So just like in people, you're going to have some people that get a lot bigger than other people. Just like some people get smaller than other people, there is, you know, extremes on both ends with an average in between. So when you say that the average ball python gets about 4 feet and maybe like 1,500 to 2,000 grams or so, that's an average. That does not mean that they can't get any bigger than that. So this right here would be the equivalent of like maybe like a 7-foot-plus person that weighs over 300 pounds, you know, like probably even bigger than that, like an extremely massive human being, you know, someone that would just like, you would stare at them in public because they're just freakishly large. That's the same thing that's going on here. She is way bigger than the average ball python, and it's nothing to do with how she was raised or anything like that. She's only actually 3 years old, so she grew extremely quickly. But she's over 3,000 grams, which is just massive, and she's about 5 foot long, and I can't get my hand all the way around her at all. So as far as a ball python goes, just a massive animal, but unique in that aspect.
Has she laid any eggs yet?
No, she's never laid a clutch of eggs for me, surprisingly. And I'm starting to kind of get worried because we bred her last year, or we tried to breed her last year and this year also, and none of the males are interested in her at all. They won't even try to court her or anything. So I don't know if maybe she's infertile, like something weird is going on with her, but no, a male has never been interested in her before, and she's definitely big enough. So with the GHI that I was talking about earlier, this is what happens when you cross it into pastel. So when you get that really dark color crossed in with something that's going to make really light colors like pastel, it's another kind of contradiction type of snake. So that one's pretty cool to me. One that everybody likes to always see when they come back here, and whenever anybody asks me, hey, what's your favorite snake to look at back here? This is kind of my default go-to, just because it's guaranteed to get a good reaction. The blue-eyed leucistic is just kind of a classic ball python. Everybody can recognize that. It's just that solid white snake who's pretty dirty right now because we just cleaned her tub and she's got water all over her. But she's got the blue eyes, solid white body, very, very pretty animal. Everybody loves them, and as most people know, there's a whole complex of different genes that you can cross with each other, from Mojave butter, lesser, whatever you want to call them, and all those different things. But there's another one that a whole lot of people aren't really working with right now, that we still have one that's young, but this is a bamboo. And you can make a blue-eyed leucistic with this as well. It's in that complex of allelic genes, but kind of rarer. But very cool snake. Not a whole lot of people are working with the bamboo gene right now, and I think it's very promising in the future with what's going to be done with that. And then we've got our whole piebald project over here that everybody loves. Piebalds, just a classic. Show you that. So this is a standard piebald, and I've got a really cool piebald that I want to show you guys here real quick. So this right here is a banana piebald. So what happens when you cross banana, which is incomplete dominant, to piebald, which is recessive, and you get this snake that is expressing both of those genes. Honestly, it's one of my favorite combos and ball pythons out there, just because piebald is one of my favorites, and so is banana. So to see them together, and not only do they look good together, but they kind of add to each other. It lightens up the banana, and just an amazing thing that doesn't really need words for it. Here's another snake we produced this year that honestly might be one of my favorite ball pythons that I have ever produced. And I'm not exactly 100% sure what it is exactly, but my best guess is a banana champagne fire enchi. And it got paradoxed right here, kind of what I was talking about earlier. And I believe the champagne got left out right here. So what you're looking at right there is banana fire enchi without the champagne, because champagne is going to kind of create this patternless look to the whole side of it. So that's what is going on with the rest of it there. So very, very cool animal. You can see purples in that, which is a pretty rare color as well. But very pretty baby. Got one more kind of cool, unique thing to show you. Most people would probably think this is like a lemon blast right off the bat, but there is no pastel in it. It is, I believe it's a world's first. It was a spot nose pinstripe blitz. So there's 3 different genes in there that are all messing with the pattern. They all do different things in different ways, and so you see just how weird and busy that pattern is, and it's very ununiform, just kind of all over the place, just little markings. But for some reason, adding in a whole bunch of color, or adding in a bunch of pattern morphs changed the color of the snake. So it's very, very light colored compared to what it would normal pinstripe would look like. So pretty cool snake there. Do you have any questions, Kurt?
About how many ball pythons do you have?
So last year we produced about 40 clutches, and the average clutch size would be about 5 or 6 eggs. So To be completely honest, I don't know how many we even produced altogether because the babies are almost gone as soon as they're hatching. So we don't hold on to them for very long, and they're gone into people's homes as soon as they're out of the egg. And some of them are already like have deposits on them before they're even hatched. So I don't know. We did about 40 clutches this year with an average of like 5 or 6 an egg. So do you have any other questions?
No.
All right. Thank you for watching. You've been watching Classy Herps.